Hello everyone, I'm Ciaran, and today I am doing a deck tech for you all on this, which is my current standard deck, which I'm referring to as Aero Mew, which is not my own idea. Other people have had it before. This is my version of it, and it makes use primarily of this card, which is Mew X. This version is from Black and White Legendary Treasures, Radiant Collection 1, I very much so like it, and it uses 4 of it. Now the reason that this card is so useful in the deck, and so good in my opinion, is while it may only have 120 hits, it has this ability, Versatile, which states this Pokemon can use the attacks of any Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's. You still need the necessary energy to use each attack. Now what this means is, as long as Mew has the energies, she can use any attack that's out, any attack at all on any Pokemon that's out, and that is what you want to use. Now, there are lots of different ones that you can use for it, but basically the deck relies on getting a double colour synergy, a DC, on Mew, which is why there are 4 in the deck, or potentially if your opponent has a lot of useful moves, then we also have Rainbow Energies, which can provide one of any type of energy, so you can put a Rainbow Energy on her and then use your opponent's moves, which can be very useful. So there's 4 of those as well. Those are all the energies in the deck, 4 DCs, 4 Rainbow Energies. Then what you want is to get out Pokemon whose attacks you can use, which are very good, and only cost a DC or less. Now in this instance, what I've gone for is Tauros GX. Previously I would have used something like Lugia EX, but Tauros GX I find is a bit better for this kind of thing now. Now for 1 DC, so that's 2 colourless energies, he can use Horn Attack, which does an automatic 60, which would have been the same as Lugia's attack with a DC, as long as your opponent also had 1 energy on them. Now the reason Lugia was good for this was because it got more and more powerful as time went on, because more energies were applied to yours and your opponent's Pokemon. Whereas Tauros GX also gets better because you can use Rage, which does 20 damage plus 10 more for each damage on this Pokemon, or indeed on Mew, if you're using Mew's ability, to use his attack. But the really good bit about Tauros GX is what makes him, in my opinion, the best GX currently out, is Mad Bull GX, which I think is the best GX move, which does 30 damage times the amount of damage counters on this Pokemon. So at most he can have like 170 unless you use something like a Fighting Fury Belt to give him more hit points. But anyway, you can do hundreds of damage with that, and particularly good with this is when you surprise your opponent. Say you have a weak little Mew that has 100 damage on them, and it's about to be knocked out, and there's no way you can kill it with what you've got out, so you use Ninja Boy. Surprise! Mew disappears, she gets switched out for a Tauros who can suddenly do 300 damage out of nowhere and take out a threat, which can be very, very useful. The other Pokemon you're going to want to get out to use their useful attacks is Aerodactyl. This Aerodactyl from Fates Collide is utterly amazing. Even on its own, it's a good card, but particularly when coupled with the fact that Mew can use its attacks as well. For 1 DC, again, 2 colourless energies, it has the attack Jet Draft, which does 120 damage, which is insane for 2 energies, and you get to discard a special energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So you can get rid of their DCs, you can get rid of their strong energies, you can get rid of anything that's not a basic energy, and that's just incredibly useful. So because of that, there are 4 of this in the deck. I would actually have more Tauros GXs in the deck, but I only currently own 2. I want the Hyper X, then I can have all 3. The only other Pokemon I use is Oranguru, because of its Instruct ability, which lets you, once during your turn before you attack, draw cards until you have 3 in your hand, which can be very useful. And also, if push comes to shove, Mew can use his attack Psychic, which can actually prove to be quite useful. A few times I've had a Mew out with a DC and then thrown a Rainbow Energy on it just so that I can use Psychic and take someone else out. It's quite useful. It's I need the reverse holo one. I've got the holo, the one from the deck that's non-holo, and I've got the pre-release. I just need the reverse holo and I have all 4. Now because all the Pokemon in this deck are basic, apart from Aerodactyl, who doesn't count because he's a restored Pokemon, Fighting Fury Belts are indispensable. They're amazing. Mew, as it happens, only has 120 hit points, which makes her quite weak for an EX, but a Fighting Fury Belt means everything does 10 more damage, and she has 160 hits, which makes her a lot stronger. And of course, Tauros becomes a 220 hit point Pokemon who gets stronger as he gets wounded, so he just becomes better and better. Now, because you've got Aerodactyls in your deck and you want to get them out as quick as possible, you have to have 4 copies of Old Ember Aerodactyl and 4 copies of Fossil Excavation Kit, which lets you get back your Old Ember Aerodactyls. One of the most indispensable cards, and that I used to use Giovanni's Scheme for this, but basically Fresca-Kui is just a better version of Giovanni's Scheme at this point. Fresca-Kui's supporter lets you draw 2 cards, and then during this turn, your opponent's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Now, there are quite a few times where you'll find that you can't quite knock someone out, but you could if you did just a little bit extra damage, or that doing a little bit extra damage one turn will mean that next turn you'll be able to take them out with it'll turn a 3-hit KO into a 2-hit KO, which can be very, very useful, and the ability to also draw 2 cards is fantastic. Because Giovanni's Scheme used to let you either draw until you had 5 in your hand or do 20 extra damage, but Kukui lets you draw and do 20 extra, so it's just a better version. Now, because Aerodactyls are a dead draw in your hand, you can't play them, you have to have them in your deck in order to get them out using Old Ember Aerodactyl. What you'll need is to be able to shuffle your hand, because sometimes you are going to draw them, and that's going to be a shame. So you need copies of things like N, things like Professor Birch's Observations. These are all helpful things. Sycamore's good too, because being able to refill your hand or drawing to 7 is amazing. And of course, it doesn't matter if you discard stuff, because you can use good old Puzzle of Time, which, in case you don't know, either you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and then put them back in any order, which can be useful to know what you're going to get and ensure that you have the right card, or if you play 2 of them at once, you get to select any 2 cards from your discard pile and put them back in your hand, and that is fantastic as an ability. Now, there's loads of supporters in this deck, so just as some deck thinning, you got 4 copies of Random Receiver, because that'll help, obviously. I use Steven instead of... I can't remember what it's called. There's another supporter that lets you search specifically for a trainer, not a supporter, and I think that would actually be better in this deck, but I can't remember what it's called, and I can't remember where I've put mine, so I'm currently using Steven. Trainer's Mail is a great card in pretty much any deck, but in this kind of deck it's very, very useful. Lysanders are fantastic because Mew or Aerodactyl or often Tauros can do significant amounts of damage, usually quite significantly over 120. They can take out a Shaman EX in 1 hit, or a Hooper EX if you've got Mew out, because they have weakness. And what that means is you use Lysanders, because being able to take 2 victory cards from 1 hit, getting rid of a card that is in pretty much every deck nowadays. You go against someone, chances are they're going to have a Shaman or a Hooper, usually at least one of each. And the ability to take them out in 1 hit and be able to just, by the way, it's out now, and it's dead. You get 2 victory cards, that's great. Team Skullgrunt, awesome card that has just come out. I used to have Flare Grunt in, but Team Skullgrunt I think is just significantly better, because being able to get rid of your opponent's cards in their hand before they can even put them out is hilarious. You'd use it turn 1, get rid of all your opponent's energies, and then they don't draw into anything, and watch them not be able to do anything for the next few turns, and you just set up and win. It's great. Nest Ball is good for getting out Mews, Orangaroos, Tauroses. Crushing Hammer, just good for energy removals, and Computer Search isn't actually in Standard now, but it's in Extended. This needs to be replaced with an Ultra Ball. But yeah, that's basically that's the gist of the deck. It relies heavily on Mew and on getting Mew out. So essentially what you're going to want to do is you want to see a hand where you have, let's say you start with a Mew, you put out a Mew, and then you'll stick a DCE on it. So Mew's now powered up and ready to attack. You'll use either put out a Tauros GX, in which case you can start swinging away for 60 straight away, or you'll use like an Old Ember Aerodactyl, luckily pull out an Aerodactyl and start being able to swing away for 120 damage on your very first turn, provided you go second, of course. And that's basically all there is to the deck. It works surprisingly well. It wins almost every time, for me at least. Things that shut it down are stuff like Garbodor Revoltal, things that prevent abilities from functioning, like Mews. So Garbodor's Garbotoxing ability or Silent Lab, that kind of thing. But because Mew only has one retreat cost, and all the Pokemon in this deck, apart from Oranguru, can attack with a DCE, including Aerodactyl, who has free retreat cost, and Tauros, who's so big he can stay out for ages, and as he does, he gets more and more powerful. Even if they get out a Garbodor or play Silent Lab or something, normally you can just retreat your Mew, bring out one of the your other threats, and start swinging away with them. So even then, it doesn't actually matter that much to you. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this deck tech. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video.